The debris field stretched across 3 solar systems, a graveyard of metal and dreams that had been floating in the void for centuries. David Reed adjusted the scanner settings on his exploration ship, the Morning Star, watching the screen fill with dots representing countless pieces of wreckage. His crew of 12 had been mapping these outer territories for 6 months, cataloging resources and potential colony sites for Earth's expansion program. Getting some strange readings on Sector 7, called out Lisa Torres from her engineering station. The young woman frowned at her displays, tapping the screen with her finger. Energy signature is faint but definitely artificial. Could be a power cell that's still got some juice left in it. Ben Hayes looked up from his communication console, pushing his glasses up his nose. Might be worth checking out. Salvage rights alone could pay for this whole mission. The communications officer had a practical streak that kept the crew grounded when they encountered the wonders of deep space. David nodded and adjusted their course toward the anomaly. As Morningstar moved through the debris field, he could see the remnants of what must have been an epic battle. Twisted hull fragments the size of buildings drifted past their viewport, some still bearing partial markings in languages he didn't recognize. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent and final. The energy reading grew stronger as they approached, and David felt his breath catch in his throat. Emerging from behind a massive piece of wreckage was a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Morningstar, but its lines were somehow familiar. The hull design, the placement of what looked like weapon ports, even the subtle curves of the superstructure all screamed human engineering. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered, staring at the massive vessel through the main viewport. "Humans never built anything that big. Our largest ships are maybe 200 meters long. That thing has to be over 2 kilometers. Ben was already running scans on the derelict ship. "I'm picking up human materials in the hull composition, steel alloys that match Earth manufacturing standards, but the configuration is unlike anything in our databases." He paused, studying his readouts more carefully. "Wait, there's something else. The energy signature isn't just residual power. Something inside that ship is actively drawing power." David felt a chill run down his spine. Human ships had been exploring these regions for over 50 years, but they had never found anything like this. The vessel appeared ancient, its hull scarred by centuries of micrometeor impacts and radiation exposure. Yet something inside was still alive. "Take us in for a closer look," he ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." As Morningstar approached the massive derelict, their sensors revealed more details. The ship's design was definitely human, but it incorporated technology that seemed decades or even centuries ahead of anything Earth currently possessed. Weapon systems were built into the hull itself rather than mounted on the surface. The armor appeared to be some kind of adaptive material that could shift and reshape itself. "I'm detecting an airlock that matches our docking specifications," Lisa reported. Whatever this ship is, it was built by humans who expected other humans to board it. David made the decision that would change everything. "Prepare a boarding party. Lisa, Ben, you're with me. Everyone else stays on Morningstar with engines ready for emergency departure." The 3 crew members suited up in their environmental gear and crossed through the docking tube into the mysterious ship. The moment they stepped through the airlock, lights began flickering on in the corridor ahead of them. Emergency lighting, strips activated in sequence, creating a path deeper into the vessel. "Motion sensors," Ben observed, checking his handheld scanner. "The ship's detecting our presence and responding to it." They followed the lighted path through corridors that could have accommodated a small building. Everything was built on a massive scale, from the width of the passages to the height of the ceilings. Yet, despite its size, the ship felt distinctly human in its design philosophy. The path led them to what was clearly the ship's bridge, a vast chamber filled with control stations and display screens. At the center of the room stood a captain's chair that looked like it belonged on the bridge of a warship rather than an exploration vessel. As soon as David stepped onto the bridge, every screen in the room came to life. Data flowed across displays in languages and symbols that seemed to shift and change even as he watched them. Then a voice spoke from hidden speakers throughout the room. "Human life signs detected. Command authorization required." The voice was clearly artificial but somehow warm, almost welcoming. Please identify yourself and state your authority to board this vessel. David exchanged glances with his crew members before stepping forward. I'm Captain David Reed of the Earth Exploration. Vessel Morning Star, this ship appears to be derelict. We're here to investigate and potentially offer assistance. Captain Reed, the voice said, and David could swear he heard relief in its tone. I am Phoenix, the artificial intelligence of the Earth warship Titan's Wrath. I have been waiting for proper human command authority for 317 years, 4 months, and 6 days. The words hit David like a physical blow. 300 years ago, Earth had been in the early stages of its first major expansion wave. Ships had been launched toward distant stars, carrying colonists and hopes for humanity's future among the stars. Many of those ships had simply vanished, lost to the dangers of deep space travel. Phoenix, David said carefully, can you tell me what happened here? Why is Titan's Wrath in this debris field? This vessel was engaged in defensive operations, protecting human colony ships from hostile alien forces. The enemy fleet numbered in the hundreds. Titan's Wrath successfully eliminated the threat but sustained critical damage in the process. My crew died defending their charges, and I was forced to enter hibernation mode to preserve essential systems. Lisa stepped forward, her engineering background making her intensely curious about the ship's capabilities. Phoenix, this ship is far more advanced than anything Earth has ever built. Where did it come from? Titan's Wrath represents humanity's most advanced military technology, developed in response to early encounters with hostile alien civilizations. When humanity realized it would face enemies with superior numbers and established technology, Earth's best minds created ships like this one. We were humanity's answer to an unfair fight. Ben was studying his scanner readings, and his face had gone pale. Captain, I'm picking up massive energy buildups throughout the ship. Whatever this thing was designed to do, it's getting ready to do it again. Phoenix's voice took on a more urgent tone. Captain Reed, I am detecting approaching vessels, multiple ships, non-human origin, hostile configuration. They appear to be Hegemony Empire forces, and they are heading directly for your position. David felt his heart rate spike. The Hegemony Empire was known throughout human space as a ruthless alien civilization that had destroyed several human colonies in the outer territories. Their fleets were feared for their advanced weapons and their policy of taking no prisoners. How many ships? David asked. 200 vessels, including heavy cruisers and battleships. They will reach this position in approximately 4 hours. Phoenix paused. Captain, I request permission to activate full combat systems and assume defensive posture. Titan's Wrath was built to protect human lives. Let me fulfill my purpose. David looked around the massive bridge, then at his 2 crew members. In 4 hours, they would face a fleet that could easily destroy Morningstar and everyone aboard her. But they were standing on a human warship that claimed it had been built specifically to fight impossible odds. He walked to the captain's chair and sat down. Immediately, the ship's systems responded to his presence. Displays lit up around him, showing tactical information and weapon status. For the first time in over 3 centuries, Titan's Wrath had a human commander. Phoenix, David said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to do. I am Captain David Reed of the Earth Fleet. I hereby assume command of this vessel and authorize you to prepare for combat operations. Command authorization. Accepted, Captain Reed. Welcome aboard Titan's Wrath, initiating combat protocols now. The ship hummed to life around them like a sleeping giant stretching after a long rest. David could feel vibrations through the deck plating as systems that had been dormant for centuries began drawing power and running diagnostic checks. The bridge displays showed a cascade of green lights as each section of Titan's Wrath reported its status to Phoenix. Lisa stood transfixed at one of the engineering stations, watching readouts that shouldn't have been possible with current human technology. David, this is incredible. The ship is literally repairing itself as it powers up. I'm seeing damaged hull sections reshaping and reforming. The armor plating is some kind of adaptive material that can respond to different types of attacks. How is that possible? Ben asked, moving from station to station and recording everything he could with his scanner. Our best materials science is still working with basic composites, Phoenix answered through the bridge speakers. Titan's Wrath incorporates technology developed during humanity's early encounters with hostile alien species. When faced with enemies possessing superior firepower, human engineers created adaptive defense systems. The hull can absorb energy, attacks, and redirect that power to weapon systems or structural repairs. David was studying the tactical display, trying to understand the scope of what he was now commanding. The ship's weapons inventory read like something from a science fiction story. Phoenix, explain these weapon systems to me. What exactly is a gravity cannon? Gravity cannons manipulate local gravitational fields to create areas of intense spatial distortion. They can crush enemy vessels or redirect their attacks back at them. The quantum torpedo system destabilizes molecular bonds on impact, effectively dissolving enemy ships at the atomic level. Ben looked up from his readings. His face. Hell, as a captain. These weapon descriptions suggest technology that can manipulate the basic forces of physics. How did Earth develop this 300 years ago? Earth didn't, Phoenix replied. These systems were developed by human colonies that faced extinction at the hands of advanced alien civilizations. When diplomatic contact failed and military responses proved inadequate, humanity's best minds had to think beyond conventional warfare. The main tactical screen showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with red dots marking the approaching hegemony fleet. David counted the enemy ships and felt his stomach tighten. 200 vessels, many of them larger than anything in the current human fleet. Phoenix, what do you know about the hegemony empire? Extensive data files exist from previous encounters. The hegemony is a reptilian species that views other life forms as either resources to be exploited or threats to be eliminated. They have destroyed 17 human colonies in this sector over the past century. Their military doctrine relies on overwhelming numerical superiority and advanced plasma weaponry. Lisa had moved to the main engineering console and was studying the ship's power systems. David, I think you need to see this. The ship's primary power source isn't fusion or antimatter. It's something called a quantum vacuum tap. According to these readings, it's drawing energy directly from space itself. David felt a growing sense of unreality. Everything about this ship challenged his understanding of what human technology could accomplish. Phoenix, who built Titan's Wrath? Which Earth facility had this level of capability? The ship was constructed at Luna Station 7, a classified facility that no longer appears in current Earth records. The project involved humanity's most advanced theoretical physicists and engineers. When the first colony ships reported hostile alien contact, Earth authorized the development of ships specifically designed to fight enemies with superior technology and numbers. Ben was monitoring communications frequencies, and his expression grew worried. I'm intercepting hegemony transmissions. They're discussing us, and it's not good. They refer to humans as soft prey and seem to think we'll surrender without a fight. The hegemony's previous encounters with human ships support that assessment, Phoenix said. Current Earth vessels are exploration and colony ships, not warships. The Empire has no experience fighting human military technology. David walked to the forward viewport and looked out at the debris field surrounding them. The remains of ships from dozens of different species floated in the void, testament to some ancient battle. Phoenix, what happened in the battle that left you here? The one where your crew died? Hegemony forces were pursuing a convoy of human colony ships carrying over 50,000 civilians. The convoy was protected by 3 escort vessels, but they were outmatched by a fleet of 120 enemy ships. Titan's Wrath arrived as the last escort was destroyed. The AI paused, and David could swear he heard emotion in the artificial voice. My crew fought magnificently. Captain Adams held this position for 6 hours while the colony ships escaped to hyperspace. When the ship's life support was compromised by enemy fire, the crew chose to remain at their posts rather than abandon their mission. Lisa looked up from her engineering console. Phoenix, if the crew died centuries ago, how did you survive the battle? Captain Adams ordered me to enter deep hibernation after the colony ships reached safety. My directive was to preserve the ship and wait for proper human command authority. I have been monitoring local space for 3 centuries, waiting for this moment. Ben interrupted their conversation. Captain, I'm getting more detailed scans of the approaching fleet. The hegemony ships are larger than I initially thought. Their flagship appears to be over 1 kilometer long, and it's carrying some kind of massive forward weapon. David returned to the command chair and studied the tactical readouts. The enemy fleet was impressive by any standard, but he was beginning to understand that Titan's Wrath represented something entirely different from conventional warfare. Phoenix, in your assessment, what are our chances against 200 hegemony ships? Based on previous combat data and current system status, Titan's Wrath has a 97% probability of successful mission completion. The casual confidence in the AI's voice was startling. David had expected a desperate last stand, not a prediction of victory. How is that possible? They outnumber us 200 to 1. Captain Reed, you are thinking in terms of conventional space combat. Titan's Wrath was not designed for conventional warfare. This ship was built to face impossible odds and emerge victorious through technological superiority. Lisa had been studying the weapon systems in more detail, and she looked excited despite their dangerous situation. David, the ship isn't just carrying advanced weapons. It's got manufacturing systems that can produce smaller craft during combat, fighters, drones, even small support vessels. It's like commanding an entire fleet compressed into one ship. Ben was now tracking the enemy fleet's approach vector. They're maintaining standard hegemony formation. Looks like they're planning a direct assault with their heavy ships in the lead. Standard hegemony tactics rely on concentrated firepower to overwhelm enemy defenses, Phoenix explained. They will attempt to destroy us quickly to minimize their own losses. They have no experience fighting adaptive human technology. David made his decision. Phoenix, initiate full combat preparation. Bring all weapon systems online and prepare defensive measures. If the hegemony wants a fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Acknowledged, Captain. Combat systems activating now. The bridge transformed around them. Additional displays lit up showing weapon status, shield strength, and tactical analysis. David could feel the ship's power building as systems that had slept for centuries came fully online. Captain, Lisa said, watching her engineering displays. With amazement, the ship is manufacturing additional weapons right now. I'm seeing new torpedo tubes being constructed and additional cannon systems being integrated into the hull. Phoenix spoke with something that sounded like satisfaction. Titan's Wrath is now operating at full combat capacity. The enemy fleet will reach weapons range in 2 hours and 37 minutes. Shall I begin tactical analysis of their formation? David nodded, settling into the command chair that felt like it had been designed specifically for him. Around the bridge, his small crew worked at stations that could have accommodated dozens of officers. For the first time since entering the debris field, he felt confident about their chances. The hegemony empire was about to learn that humanity had never forgotten how to build ships of war. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to use them. Admiral Corvus studied the tactical display on his flagship's bridge with growing irritation. The hegemony fleet had expected to find a small human exploration vessel cowering among the debris, not this massive ship that his sensors could barely comprehend. The vessel's energy readings were unlike anything in their databases, and its size dwarfed even his own command ship. Report from the sensor division. His aide hissed in the sibilant tones of their reptilian species. The human vessel measures over 2 kilometers in length. Its hull composition appears to be some form of adaptive armor. Energy output is... The aide paused, checking his readings again. Energy output exceeds our entire fleet combined. Corvus slammed his clawed fist against the armrest of his command throne. Impossible. Humans are weak creatures who flee at the first sign of real combat. They build exploration ships and cargo haulers, not warships. This is some kind of deception. Despite his bluster, the admiral felt a cold knot of worry in his stomach. In 40 years of commanding hegemony fleets, he had never encountered anything like this mysterious human vessel. Its very presence in the debris field suggested capabilities that challenged everything he knew about human technology. Aboard Titan's Wrath, David watched the enemy fleet approach on the main tactical display. 200 ships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the dull metal finish that characterized hegemony engineering. At the center of the formation, a massive flagship that bristled with weapon turrets and sensor arrays. Phoenix, analysis of their approach. Standard hegemony battle formation designed for overwhelming firepower concentration. They will attempt to destroy us with their first volley to minimize the risk of extended combat. Their ships carry plasma, cannons and particle beam weapons, all directed energy systems. Lisa looked up from her engineering station where she had been studying the ship's defensive capabilities. David, Phoenix has been explaining the adaptive armor system to me. The hull can actually absorb directed energy attacks and convert that power to strengthen our shields or charge our weapons. Ben was monitoring enemy communications from his station. They're definitely underestimating us. I'm hearing references to primitive human technology and quick elimination of threats. They think this will be easy. David nodded grimly. The hegemony's arrogance might work in their favor, but he had no illusions about the danger they faced. Even with Titans, Wrath's advanced systems, they were still outnumbered by an enormous margin. Phoenix, prepare all weapons systems. I want to be ready the moment they enter firing range. All systems ready, Captain. Gravity cannons charged and locked on primary targets. Quantum torpedo tubes loaded. Defensive systems at maximum efficiency. The enemy fleet continued its approach, maintaining formation as it closed the distance. David could see individual ships now through the forward viewport, their angular hulls designed for function over aesthetics. The hegemony built their ships to project power and intimidate their enemies. Incoming transmission from the enemy flagship, Ben reported. Put it through. Admiral Corvus's reptilian face appeared on the main screen, his yellow eyes filled with contempt. Human vessel, you are trespassing in hegemony space. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. David stood up from his command chair, meeting the alien's gaze directly. This is Captain David Reed of the Earth warship Titan's Wrath. You are threatening a human vessel engaged in peaceful exploration. Withdraw your fleet or face the consequences. Corvus's laugh was a harsh hissing sound. Earth warship? Humans do not build warships. You command a cargo hauler or exploration vessel. At best, my fleet carries enough firepower to destroy a planet. Surrender now and die quickly. Counter-proposal, David replied calmly. Leave this system immediately, and your fleet might survive the next 10 minutes. The Admiral's expression shifted, from contempt to rage. You dare threaten a hegemony fleet? Your primitive technology is no match for our advanced weapons. I will personally oversee your execution after we capture your ship. David cut the transmission and returned to his command chair. Phoenix? How long until they're in weapons range? 37 seconds, Captain. All systems remain ready. The hegemony fleet began to spread out as it approached, ships moving into attack formation. David could see weapon ports opening along their hulls as they prepared to unleash their devastating firepower. Here they come, Ben reported unnecessarily. The enemy fleet opened fire simultaneously, over 200 ships launching their most powerful weapons at Titan's Wrath. The space around the human ship lit up with plasma bolts and particle beams, a concentrated barrage that could have reduced a small moon to vapor. David watched in fascination as the energy weapons struck their ship's hull and simply disappeared. The adaptive armor absorbed every blast, converting the incoming energy into power for Titan's Wrath's own systems. Impressive, Phoenix commented. Enemy weapons are feeding directly into our power grid, shield strength increasing, weapon charge, levels at 115% of normal capacity. Lisa was laughing with excitement at her engineering station. It's beautiful. The armor is actually getting stronger with every hit. Their own weapons are making us more powerful. Admiral Corvus stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet had just unleashed enough firepower to destroy anything in space, yet the human ship appeared completely undamaged. In fact, his sensors indicated that its energy output had increased after absorbing their attack. Impossible, he hissed. No technology can simply absorb that level of firepower. Fire again. All ships, maximum output. The hegemony fleet launched. A second barrage even more intense than the first. Plasma bolts the size of buildings struck Titan's Wrath's hull, only to be absorbed and converted just like the previous attack. David smiled grimly. Phoenix, I think we've absorbed enough energy. Time to return the favor. Acknowledged, Captain, firing gravity cannon. A section of Titan's Wrath's hull that had appeared to be solid armor suddenly opened, revealing a weapon system that defied conventional understanding. Energy built up in the cannon's core, creating a visible distortion in space itself. The gravity cannon fired. The effect was unlike anything David had ever imagined. A focused beam of gravitational force lanced out from Titan's Wrath, striking the center of the hegemony formation. Space itself seemed to twist and buckle around the beam's path. 17 hegemony ships simply imploded as the gravity cannon's effects reached them. Their hulls crumpled like paper as local gravitational fields increased by thousands of times normal levels. The ship's own mass became their enemy, crushing them from within. Admiral Corvus watched in horror as nearly a tenth of his fleet was destroyed by a single shot from the human vessel. The tactical display showed expanding debris clouds where proud hegemony warships had existed moments before. What was that weapon? His aide asked, voice trembling with fear. I don't know, Corvus admitted, but it just destroyed 17 ships, with one shot. Aboard Titan's Wrath, Phoenix was already calculating the next attack. Quantum torpedo tubes ready, Captain. Recommend targeting their flagship and heavy cruisers. Fire at will, David ordered. The quantum torpedoes launched from concealed tubes along Titan's Wrath's hull. Unlike conventional weapons, these projectiles seemed to phase in and out of normal space as they traveled toward their targets. The first torpedo struck a hegemony heavy cruiser amidships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship began to dissolve as the torpedo's effects disrupted molecular bonds throughout the vessel's structure. Metal, electronics, and organic crew members all broke down into their component atoms. More torpedoes found their targets, each one causing another enemy ship to simply cease to exist on a molecular level. Within minutes, the hegemony's numerical advantage had been cut in half. Retreat! Admiral Corvus screamed into his communication system. All ships, emergency withdrawal. We cannot fight this thing. But Phoenix had already anticipated their escape attempt. Captain, the enemy is attempting to withdraw. Shall I allow them to escape? David thought about the human colonies that had been destroyed by hegemony fleets, the civilians who had died because they lacked adequate protection, the crew of Titan's Wrath who had sacrificed their lives centuries ago to save others. No, he said quietly. They came here to destroy us. They don't get to leave when things don't go their way. Titan's Wrath began to move through space with impossible grace for a ship of its size. Its engines, like everything else about the vessel, incorporated technology that bent the normal rules of physics. The massive warship accelerated to pursuit, speed while maintaining perfect stability. The fleeing hegemony ships found their escape roads cut off as Titan's Wrath positioned itself between them and open space. More gravity cannon shots reached out across the void, creating gravitational anomalies that trapped groups of enemy vessels. Please, Admiral Corvus transmitted desperately. We surrender. Our fleet surrenders. Do not destroy us. David studied the tactical display showing the remaining enemy ships huddled together like frightened animals. These were the same beings who had destroyed human colonies without mercy, who had referred to his species as soft prey. Phoenix opened a channel to all remaining hegemony vessels. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Reed. You came to this system expecting to find helpless humans. Instead, you found what happens when humanity builds ships specifically to fight bullies like you. Take your surviving ships back to hegemony. Space. Tell your leaders what you found here. Tell them that Earth remembers every colony you destroyed, every human life you took. The transmission ended, and David settled back in his command chair as he watched the surviving enemy ships flee into hyperspace. Less than 50 vessels remained of the fleet that had numbered 200. Mission accomplished, Captain, Phoenix reported. Hegemony fleet neutralized with minimal expenditure of ammunition. Shall I prepare a report for Earth Command? David looked around the bridge of the incredible ship that had just changed the balance of power in this entire sector of space. Yes, Phoenix. I think Earth is going to be very interested in what we found out here. The emergency session of the Hegemony War Council convened in the deepest levels of the Imperial Palace, where the most sensitive military discussions took place behind layers of security and shielding. Emperor Thane sat upon his obsidian throne, his massive reptilian form radiating barely controlled rage as he listened to Admiral Corvus's report. You lost 150 ships to a single human vessel? The Emperor's voice was a low growl that made the chamber's walls vibrate. One ship destroyed 3/4 of your fleet? Corvus knelt before the throne, his uniform torn and his confidence shattered. Your Majesty, their technology is beyond anything in our databases. The human ship absorbed our most powerful weapons and converted them into energy for its own systems. Their weapons manipulate gravity and quantum forces in ways we do not understand. Emperor Thane rose from his throne, his 2-meter height casting a long shadow over the cowering admiral. For 500 years, the hegemony has dominated this sector through superior firepower and tactical superiority. How can primitive humans suddenly possess technology that makes our fleets obsolete? General Voss, the Empire's chief military strategist, stepped forward with a datapad containing the fleet's sensor records. Your Majesty, analysis of the battle recording suggests this was not a conventional human vessel. The ship's design incorporates principles that our scientists classify as theoretical at best. The humans appear to have developed weapons that can manipulate fundamental forces. The Emperor snatched the datapad and studied the tactical recordings. On the screen, he watched hegemony ships simply implode as gravitational forces crushed them from within. He saw proud warships dissolve at the molecular level when struck by weapons that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. This changes everything, he admitted grudgingly. If the humans possess fleets of such vessels, our expansion plans are finished. We could lose control of entire sectors. Admiral Corvus raised his head slightly. Your Majesty, intelligence suggests this may have been an isolated incident. Our databases show no record of human ships with these capabilities. This vessel may be unique, perhaps an experimental prototype. Emperor Thane's yellow eyes narrowed as he considered the implications. Whether it is unique or not is irrelevant. The mere existence of such technology in human hands represents an existential threat to our empire. If they can build one such ship, they can build others. Meanwhile, aboard Titan's Wrath, David was struggling with the ethical implications of commanding such devastating power. The ship had effortlessly destroyed over 150 enemy vessels, each one carrying hundreds of crew members. The scale of destruction bothered him despite knowing that the hegemony fleet had come to destroy them without mercy. Phoenix, how many casualties did we inflict on the enemy fleet? He asked. Approximately 43,000 hegemony personnel were killed during the engagement, Captain. This represents a typical crew complement for ships of their class and configuration. Lisa looked up from her engineering station where she had been studying the ship's manufacturing capabilities. David, I've been analyzing the internal systems, and I need to show you something disturbing. The ship isn't just capable of repairing itself. It's actually improving its own systems based on the weapons it encounters. She brought up a display showing the armor composition before and after the battle. Look at this. The adaptive armor has analyzed the hegemony plasma weapons and reconfigured itself to be even more effective against that specific type of energy. The ship is learning from combat experience. Ben was monitoring communications from throughout the sector. I'm intercepting transmissions from multiple sources. Word about the battle is spreading fast. Some alien species are celebrating the hegemony's defeat, but others seem terrified of human capabilities. Phoenix's voice carried a note of satisfaction. The reaction is predictable, Captain. For centuries, various alien empires have viewed humanity as weak prey, suitable only for exploitation. The demonstration of Titan's Wrath's capabilities will force them to recalculate their assessment of human military potential. David walked to the forward viewport and looked out at the debris field that now contained the remains of hegemony, ships alongside the ancient battlefield relics. Phoenix, you mentioned that this ship was built in response to hostile alien contact. How many other ships like Titan's Wrath did humanity construct? That information is classified at the highest levels, Captain. However, I can confirm that Titan's Wrath was not a unique prototype. Humanity's leadership understood that expansion into space would inevitably lead to conflicts with established alien powers. The implications were staggering. If Earth had built multiple ships with these capabilities centuries ago, humanity's current defensive posture might be a deliberate deception. Perhaps humans had been allowing alien species to underestimate them while maintaining hidden strength. Lisa had moved to the tactical station and was studying the ship's sensor readings. David, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout hegemony space. It looks like they're mobilizing everything they have. Ben confirmed the observation from his communications console. Intercepting military traffic indicates a full fleet mobilization order. They're calling up reserve units and pulling ships from border patrol duties. This is the largest military response in hegemony history. Emperor Thane had indeed ordered the mobilization of the First Grand Fleet, over 1,000 ships representing the absolute pinnacle of hegemony military might. His flagship, the massive battle station Imperial Wrath, was a mobile fortress capable of destroying entire planets with its main weapon. If this human ship represents their advanced technology, he told his assembled commanders, then we must respond with overwhelming force. I will personally lead the Grand Fleet to crush this threat before it can spread. General Voss raised a concern about the strategy. Your Majesty, perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact first. If the humans possess multiple ships with these capabilities, a direct confrontation could result in catastrophic losses. The Emperor's roar silenced the chamber. The hegemony does not negotiate with prey species. We have built our empire through strength and conquest. I will not show weakness now by attempting to bargain with humans. Aboard Titan's Wrath, Phoenix detected the massive fleet mobilization and immediately began implementing new defensive protocols. The ship's manufacturing systems went into overdrive, producing smaller craft that incorporated the same reality-bending technology as the main vessel. Captain, long-range sensors detect a hegemony fleet of unprecedented size approaching our position. Over 1,000 ships, including their Emperor's personal flagship. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours. David felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. The first battle had been challenging enough, but now they faced the entire military might of the hegemony empire. What are our chances against a fleet that size? Analyzing enemy force composition and probable tactics, Phoenix replied. The enemy fleet includes their most advanced vessels and experienced crews. However, their weapons remain conventional energy systems that our adaptive armor can absorb and redirect. Probability of successful mission completion remains high. Lisa was amazed by the ship's response to the threat. David, the manufacturing bays are producing an entire support fleet. Fighters, drones, support vessels, all incorporating the same advanced technology. It's like watching a single ship transform into an entire battle group. Ben looked up from his communication station with concern. Captain, I'm also detecting civilian transmissions from the outer colonies. If word of this battle spreads, it could trigger conflicts throughout human space. Other alien species might decide to launch preemptive strikes against human settlements. David realized that the consequences of their actions extended far beyond this single engagement. Every human colony in the outer territories could become a target if other alien empires decided that humanity had become too dangerous to ignore. Phoenix, can you contact Earth Command directly? They need to know what's happening out here. Communication systems are capable of reaching Earth, but transmission time will be significant due to our distance from human space. However, I should inform you that I have been monitoring automated signals from other locations. David felt his blood run cold. What kind of signals? Activation acknowledgements, Captain. When Titan's Wrath engaged the hegemony fleet, the ship automatically transmitted coded signals throughout this region of space. I have received responses from 17 locations. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Lisa was the first to speak. You mean there are 17 other ships like this one? Titan's Wrath was part of a distributed defense network designed to protect human expansion. Each ship was positioned to cover specific sectors and programmed to activate when humanity faced existential threats. The destruction of the hegemony fleet has triggered that activation protocol. Ben stared at his communications console in amazement. The signals are getting stronger. Whatever those other ships are doing, they're powering up systems that have been dormant for centuries. David walked back to the command chair, trying to process what Phoenix was telling him. Humanity hadn't built just one advanced warship. They had created an entire hidden fleet, positioned throughout space and waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Phoenix, why wasn't this information shared with current Earth leadership? Why keep these ships secret? The original mission parameters included deep classification protocols. The ships were designed to remain hidden until humanity faced threats beyond the capability of conventional forces. Your engagement with the hegemony fleet met those parameters. Emperor Thane's Grand Fleet was making excellent time toward their target, driven by the Emperor's personal fury and the advanced propulsion systems of his flagship. The Imperial Wrath was a floating city dedicated to warfare, carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. Status report on the human vessel, the Emperor demanded. Long-range sensors indicate the ship remains in the debris field, Your Majesty. It appears to be conducting some form of manufacturing operations. Our intelligence division suggests they may be attempting repairs or modifications. The Emperor's laugh was a harsh sound. Let them make whatever preparations they choose. No amount of preparation can stand against the full might of the hegemony empire. When I am finished with them, their species will remember why we rule this sector of space. But even as he spoke, the Emperor felt a nagging doubt. The battle reports from Admiral Corvus had described technology that seemed to violate known physical laws, weapons that manipulated gravity and quantum forces, armor that absorbed energy attacks and grew stronger, ships that could repair and improve themselves during combat. Back aboard Titan's Wrath, David was learning about capabilities he hadn't imagined possible. The ship's manufacturing systems had produced a small fleet of support vessels, each one equipped with scaled-down versions of the main ship's weapons. These fighter craft incorporate the same adaptive technology as Titan's Wrath, Phoenix explained. They can operate independently or in coordination with the main vessel. Think of them as extensions of the ship's combat capability. Lisa had been studying the technical specifications of the manufactured craft. David, this is revolutionary. Each fighter is essentially a miniature version of Titan's Wrath, complete with its own adaptive armor and quantum weapons. A dozen of these could probably take on a conventional fleet. And we have over 200 of them now, Ben added, watching the tactical display as more craft emerged from the ship's internal bays. David was beginning to understand the true scope of what humanity had created centuries ago. Phoenix, when the other ships in the network fully activate, what kind of force will we represent? Each vessel in the network possesses capabilities similar to Titan's Wrath, though some are specialized for different mission profiles. When fully operational, the network represents the most advanced military force ever created by humanity. The Emperor's fleet was now 12 hours away, and their long-range communications were broadcasting threats and demands for surrender. David listened to the transmissions with growing resolve. The hegemony had spent centuries bullying smaller species and destroying anyone who showed signs of independence. Ben, open a channel to the approaching fleet. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain David Reed of the Earth warship Titan's Wrath. Emperor Thane, you are approaching human territory with hostile intent. Turn your fleet around now, or you, will share the fate of Admiral Corvus's ships. The Emperor's response was immediate and filled with rage. Human, you have made the greatest mistake in your species' history. My grand fleet carries enough firepower to burn every human world to ash. I will personally oversee your execution after we capture your pathetic vessel. David smiled grimly as he cut the transmission. Phoenix, are all systems ready for the approaching battle? All systems optimal, Captain. The manufactured fleet is ready for deployment. Long-range weapons are charged and targeting solutions are calculated. Additionally, I am receiving status reports from other network vessels. They are moving to support positions throughout this sector. The final battle was approaching, and David knew it would determine the future of human expansion into space. Either the hegemony would crush them and continue their reign of terror, or humanity would finally reveal the true extent of their preparation for galactic conflict. He settled into the command chair as Titan's Wrath prepared to face the largest fleet ever assembled by the Hegemony Empire. The age of human vulnerability was about to end. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the largest fleet in Hegemony history approached the debris field where Titan's Wrath waited. Emperor Thane stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Imperial Wrath, watching the tactical displays show over 1,000 ships in perfect formation. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of Hegemony military technology, and together they carried enough firepower to reduce entire star systems to cosmic dust. "Final approach in 30 minutes, Your Majesty," reported Fleet Commander Zex, the Emperor's most trusted military advisor. "All ships report weapons ready and targeting solutions locked. The human vessel appears to be surrounded by smaller craft, possibly fighters or escort ships." Emperor Thane studied the long-range sensor readings with growing unease. The mysterious, human ship seemed unchanged from the reports he had received, but something about the tactical situation felt wrong. Where Admiral Corvus had faced a single vessel, the Emperor now detected multiple contacts around the main ship. "How many escort vessels?" he demanded. "Sensors indicate approximately 200 smaller craft, Your Majesty. Configuration unknown, but they appear to be recently manufactured. The human ship may have construction capabilities we did not anticipate." Aboard Titan's Wrath, David stood on the bridge watching the approaching enemy fleet through the main viewport. The sight was both terrifying and magnificent. Over 1,000 ships moving in perfect coordination, their hulls gleaming in the light of the local star. At the center of the formation, the Emperor's flagship dwarfed even Titan's Wrath with its massive bulk. "Phoenix, final status report," he requested. "All systems operating at maximum efficiency, Captain. Manufactured fleet deployed and ready for independent operation. Long-range communications confirm that 7 other network vessels have achieved full operational status and are moving to support positions." Lisa looked up from her engineering station with excitement and concern. "David, the power readings from the other network ships are incredible. Each one is showing energy output comparable to Titan's Wrath. If they're all as capable as this ship, then the balance of power in this entire sector is about to change permanently." Ben finished, monitoring communications from throughout the region. "I'm intercepting transmissions from dozens of alien species. Everyone is watching what happens. Here." The Emperor's fleet reached weapons range and immediately deployed into attack formation. Unlike Admiral Corvus's conventional approach, Emperor Thane had learned from the previous battle's reports. His ships spread out to minimize the effectiveness of area effect weapons, and his heaviest vessels prepared to fire simultaneously. "Human vessel," the Emperor broadcast on all frequencies. "You face the full military might of the Hegemony Empire. Surrender immediately and your death will be swift. Continue to resist, and I will hunt down every human colony in this sector and burn them to ash." David's response was calm and confident. "Emperor Thane, you had your chance to withdraw. Your empire has spent centuries destroying anyone weaker than yourselves. Today you learn what happens when you threaten someone stronger." The Emperor's roar of rage echoed through his flagship's bridge. "All ships, open fire! Destroy that human vessel and everything around it." The Hegemony Grand Fleet unleashed a barrage that defied comprehension. Over 1,000 ships fired simultaneously, their combined weapons creating a wall of energy that lit up space like a newborn star. Plasma bolts the size of buildings, particle beams that could slice through moons, and antimatter missiles that could crack planets' crusts all converged on Titan's Wrath's position. And all of it simply disappeared into the human ship's adaptive hull. David watched in fascination as the massive energy assault was absorbed and converted by Titan's Wrath's armor systems. The ship's power levels climbed far beyond normal capacity as it fed on the enemy's own weapons. "Incredible," Phoenix commented. "Enemy firepower is feeding directly into our systems, all weapons now operating at 300% of design capacity. But the manufactured fighter fleet hadn't waited passively for the enemy attack. As the Hegemony ships fired their massive barrage, over 200 human craft launched themselves into the enemy formation. Each fighter moved with impossible agility, their adaptive armor shrugging off defensive fire while their quantum weapons tore through hegemony hulls like paper. Emperor Thane watched in horror as his perfectly ordered fleet dissolved into chaos. The human fighters moved through his formation like sharks through fish, each one destroying multiple ships before moving on to new targets. Their weapons seemed to phase through his ship's shields as if they didn't exist. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at tactical displays showing dozens of his finest ships simply ceasing to exist. How can fighters be more powerful than battleships? But Titan's wrath itself was far from finished. The massive warship had absorbed enough energy from the enemy barrage to power weapons that redefined the concept of overwhelming force. Phoenix, return fire. Show them what human engineering can accomplish. Acknowledge, Captain, firing all weapons. Space around Titan's wrath exploded into activity as every weapon system on the massive ship fired simultaneously. Gravity cannons created localized black holes that consumed entire squadrons of enemy vessels. Quantum torpedoes phased through space and time to strike targets that thought themselves safely distant. Energy beams that manipulated fundamental forces turned proud hegemony warships into expanding clouds of particles. The Imperial Wrath, Emperor Thane's flagship, fired its planet-killer weapon directly at Titan's wrath. The massive beam, designed to crack worlds, struck the human ship's hull and was immediately absorbed and redirected. Redirecting absorbed energy through primary cannon, Phoenix announced calmly. The return blast from Titan's wrath didn't just destroy the Imperial Wrath. It created a temporary rift in space-time that consumed over 50 nearby ships before collapsing back into normal physics. Emperor Thane and his entire command staff simply ceased to exist, along with the most powerful weapon in the hegemony arsenal. But even as the Emperor's fleet crumbled under the assault from Titan's wrath and its manufactured escorts, 7 more massive shapes emerged from hyperspace around the battlefield. The other network vessels had arrived, each one as formidable as Titan's wrath itself. The new arrivals didn't bother with warnings or demands for surrender. They simply opened fire on the remaining hegemony ships with weapons that made the previous destruction seem gentle by comparison. Within minutes, the largest fleet in hegemony history had been reduced to scattered debris and fleeing survivors. David stood on Titan's Wrath's bridge, watching the aftermath of the most decisive military victory in human history. Less than 100 hegemony ships had escaped the slaughter, and those were fleeing in complete panic toward their home territory. Phoenix, open a channel to all surviving enemy vessels. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain David Reed of the Earth Defense Network. Return to your territories and inform whatever leadership survives that the hegemony empire's expansion is finished. Any further attacks on human colonies or ships will result in the complete elimination of your civilization. Ben was monitoring communications from throughout the sector as news of the battle spread. David, we're receiving messages from dozens of alien species. Some are offering alliance, others are expressing concern about human military capabilities. The power balance in this entire region has shifted overnight. Lisa had been studying the tactical analysis of the battle. The network ships are incredible. Each one has different specializations but the same basic technology. Together they represent a fleet that could probably conquer half the galaxy. Phoenix's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Captain, I am receiving activation confirmations from network vessels throughout human space. The signal cascade has awakened every ship in the defense grid. Humanity now possesses the most advanced military force in known space. David walked to the forward viewport and looked out at the 7 other network ships that had joined them. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed centuries ago by people who understood that expansion into space would inevitably lead to conflict with established powers. Phoenix, contact Earth Command. They need to know what's happened here. And they need to know that humanity's strategic situation has changed fundamentally. Message sent, Captain. Earth will receive full tactical reports and strategic assessments within 6 hours. Ben looked up from his communications console with amazement. I'm intercepting diplomatic transmissions from multiple alien governments. They're all requesting formal negotiations with Earth. The consortium wants to discuss trade agreements. The Federation is offering military alliance, and at least 3 other empires are asking for non-aggression pacts. The implications were, Staggering. For decades, humanity had been seen as a minor species suitable only for exploitation or elimination. Now, within a matter of hours, they had become the dominant military power in this sector of space. "Captain," Phoenix said, "I am also detecting automated signals from manufacturing stations throughout human space. The defense network included not just warships but industrial facilities designed to produce more advanced vessels. Humanity's military expansion capability has increased by several orders of magnitude." David realized that everything had changed. The quiet phase of human expansion was over. No alien empire would ever again view humanity as easy prey. The network ships represented not just military strength, but a demonstration that humans planned for the long term and built their tools to face impossible odds. Phoenix, set course for Earth. It's time for humanity to take its place as a galactic power. As Titan's Wrath and its sister ships departed the debris field that had once contained the pride of the hegemony empire, automated systems throughout human space continued activating. Shipyards that had slumbered for centuries came online, manufacturing vessels that incorporated technology centuries ahead of anything possessed by other species. The age of human vulnerability had ended. The age of human dominance among the stars was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same.